Hi. Welcome to episode 3 of our series, Surviving Inflation. In the last episode, my colleague Sandra shared some important techniques that will help you gain a head start on any inflation crisis or currency devaluation periods, as such times can become quite rough for people to see their life savings lose value and the purchase power of the currency between their hands decreases. You also learned how economic middle classes in your society maintain balance and normalized pattern of monetary circulation, and how this get influenced when local currencies devaluate. My colleague gave you practical tips as well on how to establish a buffer of food stock and medicines in order to reduce your costs as much as possible during times of inflation, and achieve individual sustainability at the level of needs. Our team has been there before, which is why we have decided to teach others how to survive similar scenarios. Today we continue our tips to survive inflation, while addressing another key subject when related to inflation, your money. How do you save the stash between your hands from losing its value? What about your savings? Tip number 3. Your savings. The moment you hear on the news that central banks are planning to print and circulate new masses of local currency, or that floating policies are to be implemented, or exchange limitations are going to be removed, that's the moment you need to act fast. Once currency devaluation of currency floating strategies is announced by your central bank or government, make sure that you liquefy your savings as fast as possible. In order to control inflation, central and private banks usually resort to capital control procedures by limiting their withdrawal policies as much as possible. It means if you attempt to withdraw an amount of $400, for example, the bank will give you $200 only for the month. Not only that, as the crisis grows, banks will adopt their own exchange prices to attempt to counter their losses between official exchange rates and black market rates. This implicates negatively on the value of your savings. Banks resort to this type of control operations in order to reduce the monetary mass in the hands of public as much as possible to reduce the offer aspect and maintain the currency's value as much as they can. Remember that banks also have external or internal investments that require funding. Unfortunately, you need to realize that this funding is based on your savings along with the savings of thousands of other people. In fact, that's how banks make money. To avoid this, you need to act fast. The banking system is the first to lose the trust of clients and depositors during currency devaluation times, so before things start getting complicated, you need to head to the nearest bank and withdraw as much of your savings or current account as you can. The more time you keep your money in banks, the more difficult it will become for you to access your own savings. Remember that the more liquid cash you weigh, the more time you can survive. But an important question arises at this point, that if currency would be losing its value quickly with time, how would cashing my savings help me to survive if the purchase power of this money is decreasing as well? Well, here comes the next tip. Tip number 4. Get ready for both scenarios. You need to understand an important factor within this storm. Exploded inflation rates and currency floating decisions are usually more political than economic. One of the driving reasons behind uncontrolled inflation is that central banks are required to print more banknotes and inject them in the market in order to cover the expenses of governmental annual budgets. These budgets are developed by elected politicians, who in turn need to defend their numbers in front of other elected politicians in parliamentary sessions. Furthermore, local politics that steer economies are highly linked to regional and international affairs. This becomes quite obvious in countries that produce oil and gas, for example, or countries that are at borderline or other countries that witness conflicts. This means that the inflation crisis in your country will be highly looked into by external parties who are waiting to enter with targeted investments, or those who are prolonging the period of inflation as much as they can. That can be good or bad for you as an individual. Now that you have withdrawn your savings, you need to act fast to maintain its value. You need to split your savings into 3 categories. The first one should be in your local currency. This will cover your expenses ahead, and represent an opportunity to benefit from later on in case the currency value begins to recover. The second category should be in US dollars. Make sure you exchange a portion of your savings into US dollars. Since the scale of measurement for appreciation or depreciation of your currency is US dollars, then get as much US dollars as you can. The more the currency loses value, the more these saved dollars will be worth. But you need to remember an important trick here. Prices of material change in terms of the local currency only. They remain the same when purchased from outside the country in US dollar. So, this dollar should enhance your purchasing power later on. However, the more the local currency drops in value, the more your savings will worth. If the local currency devaluates, your stash of US dollars will protect you, while if your currency appreciates, then your stash of local currency will protect you. Make sure you maintain enough stash of your savings in both your local currency and in US dollars. But what about the third category? This category is going to be your jump start that will bounce you ahead of the crisis and start making money for you. It will be the topic which we will discuss in the next episode. But before that, try to hit that subscribe button and share the video with your friends if you find it useful.